"You're going to pay us $1, $300 a month," my mom said, "for that room you share with your brother." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the insanity was louder than the silence that followed. That night, I didn't slam doors. I didn't scream. I just smiled and said, "All right." They had no idea what was coming next. "My name's Brandon Carter. I'm 18. I just graduated high school a few weeks ago and started working full-time at a warehouse just outside Sacramento." To anyone on the outside, we looked like a regular suburban family. 3-bedroom house, Dad working an office job, Mom holding down the fort, 2 little brothers. But inside that house, I wasn't the son. I was the unpaid butler, nanny, chauffeur, housekeeper, and now, apparently, I was supposed to be the tenant too. But here's the thing. What they didn't know is that I'd been preparing for this moment longer than they thought. Before I tell you exactly how their perfect little world fell apart and how I walked away with everything, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you believe people should earn respect, not demand it by birthright. Because this is the story of how I stood up to my parents and watched their kingdom burn. You know how some people say their childhood was fine, not great, not terrible, just quietly miserable? That was me. Growing up in our house didn't feel like living. It felt like managing someone else's mess, all while pretending everything was normal. We lived in a modest 3-bedroom home outside Sacramento, California. My dad, Greg, worked in middle management at a logistics company. He wore collared shirts and talked about deadlines like they were life or death. My mom, Melissa, hadn't worked in 8 years. She called herself a stay-at-home mom. But if you asked me, her real job title was Netflix binge coordinator with a side hustle in online shopping. My brothers Dylan, 14, and Sam, 10, were just kids, loud, messy, needy, but innocent. And for years, I was the one keeping the whole operation running. It started when I was 12. My parents just handed things over, like it was natural. I became the morning alarm clock. I made breakfast, packed school lunches, walked them to the bus. After school, I'd help with homework, drive them to soccer or piano, cook dinner, do dishes, even put Sam to bed with a story. Weekends worse. My parents would go run errands, which usually meant brunch with friends or shopping trips. And there I was babysitting, cleaning, folding laundry, mowing lawns, unclogging drains, raking leaves in the fall, and shoveling snow in winter. I was doing all the things a parent is supposed to do. Except I was a teenager trying to finish algebra homework with one hand and stir spaghetti sauce with the other. And while I did all that, what was my mom doing? She'd roll out of bed sometime before noon, sip on coffee while scrolling her phone, then maybe grab lunch with her friends, hair appointments, nails every 2 weeks, skincare boxes arriving at the door while she complained about not being able to afford groceries. She drove a Lexus SUV she needed for the kids, though I was the one actually hauling them around in my beat-up Honda Civic I bought with babysitting money and a part-time job during junior year. My dad, meanwhile, walked around the house stressed out about money but refused to cut back on anything. It was always just a tight month. For the last 4 years, he'd work, come home, and sit like a statue in front of the TV while the rest of us tried to avoid breathing too loud. But no matter how much I did, it was never enough. I was still the child in their eyes. Until the day I started making money, I'd barely walked across the high school graduation stage when I landed a full-time warehouse job. Hard labor, loading trucks, sorting boxes, working the docks, 9 hours a day, 45 hours a week. It paid $15 an hour. And for the first time, I was bringing home about a whole $800 a month. Real money. And you know what? I felt proud. I bought myself decent shoes, fixed the brakes on my Civic, started saving for community college that fall. I even had a little emergency fund. It was the first taste of freedom I'd ever had. But that's when everything changed. The moment they realized I had income, I became a target. Suddenly, I wasn't the kid holding the house together, I was freeloading. My mom started with the passive-aggressive jabs. Must be nice to have all that spending money while living here rent-free. When I was your age, I gave half my paycheck to my parents. I brushed it off. Thought maybe they'd ask for a couple $100 a month. Fair enough, but it didn't stop there. My dad started joining in. It's time you contributed. We've supported you for 18 years. You think rent in the real world is free? I wanted to laugh. Support me. I'd been supporting myself and them for 6 years. They just never saw it. Or maybe they did. Maybe they were just waiting for the day they could squeeze more out of me. And it was all building toward one moment, the day they called the family meeting. They sat me down like it was an intervention. Same serious faces they wore when my cousin got suspended for vaping. Except this time, the intervention was about me living irresponsibly. Melissa put on her practiced mom voice, told me I needed to grow up, that it was time to start paying rent and bills like an adult. I was calm, nodding, trying to be fair. Then my dad hit me with it. $1, $300 a month for a shared bedroom, plus half the utilities, groceries, internet, water, trash. That brought the grand total to about $1,750 a month. Out of my $800 paycheck, they wanted to leave me with $50. And just like that, I knew. This wasn't about teaching me life skills. This wasn't about growing up. This was about turning their own son into their personal ATM. They were drowning financially because of years of reckless spending and figured I could be their life raft. They'd spent years grooming me to serve them. Now, they wanted me to pay for the privilege. But I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I said, I'll think about it. And in that silence, I started planning. After the family meeting, I couldn't sleep. $750 a month for a room I shared with Dylan. A room with bunk beds, a single window, and barely enough space for 2 dressers. No privacy, no quiet, no dignity. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to Sam's soft snores down the hall and Dylan's rhythmic breathing above me. And I thought, they really think I'm that stupid. They called it rent. But it wasn't rent. It was ransom. A punishment for growing up. A fine for making my own money. They told me it was just like the real world. Except in the real world, $7.50 gets you your own place. With walls and a bathroom. Not a bunk bed next to your teenage brother. The next morning, I said nothing. I made breakfast, packed the boys' lunches, drove Sam to school, and dropped Dylan at practice. I smiled when my mom asked if I had time to take out the trash. I did. And I did it without a word. But inside, I was done. I started researching like my life depended on it. Every spare minute at the warehouse, during lunch, at night while my parents were watching reality TV, I was deep in apartment listings. Cost of living breakdowns, forums, even Reddit threads. And what I found made my blood boil. For $1, $300, the amount they demanded, I could rent a one-bedroom apartment in my area. Modern kitchens, in-unit laundry, parking. Some even had gyms or pools. Privacy, freedom. No shared room, no fake gratitude, just adulthood on my own terms. Then I found the jackpot. A post from Jake Martinez, a guy I went to high school with. We weren't best friends, but we'd played soccer together and kept in touch on Instagram. A few months back, he posted that he was looking for a roommate, so I hit him up. Turned out he was still searching. The second bedroom in his place had been empty for months. Rent was $100, total $550 each. Utilities split down the middle, internet around $30 each. All in about $650 to $680 a month. For my own bedroom, my own bathroom, a full kitchen, balcony, gym, pool, quiet. It wasn't just a deal. It was freedom with a bow on top. We met up that weekend. Jake gave me the tour, and by the time we got to the washer and dryer, I was already reaching for my wallet. I handed him first month's rent right then and there. No hesitation. It was the best money I ever spent. When I got home that night, I felt a calm I hadn't known in years. And the minute my parents asked if I'd decided yet, I told them I'll be moving out. 2 weeks. My dad's face turned bright red. His jaw clenched like he was chewing glass. Are you serious, after everything we've done for you? But my mom, she just smiled. That smug, poisonous smile. You'll be back within a month. You don't know how the real world works. You can't even do your own laundry. I almost laughed. I'd been doing everyone's laundry for 3 years. The only ones who looked genuinely sad were the boys. Sam cried and asked if I didn't love them anymore. Dylan stayed quiet. But I saw the panic in his eyes. I pulled them aside, told them this wasn't about them, that I loved them more than anything, that I'd still see them. But I wasn't going to let Mom and Dad treat me like a bank with legs. And just like that, I was out. Jake helped me move. It didn't take long. When you've shared a bunk bed your whole life, you don't exactly have a lot of stuff. My parents watched from the window like I was being arrested. Didn't offer to help, didn't say goodbye. As I loaded the last box, my mom stepped outside. Don't come crying to us when it doesn't work out. We won't take you back. I smiled and said, don't worry, I won't need to. And I drove away. No anger, just clarity. They wanted to control me, but they just set me free. The first morning in my new apartment, I woke up to silence. No footsteps thudding down the hallway. No yelling from the kitchen. No chore list taped to the fridge. Just sunlight slipping through the blinds and the faint hum of the fridge in the next room. It was the first real peace I'd felt in years. Jake and I settled into a rhythm fast. He worked odd hours at a tech support gig, so we rarely collided. We split groceries, took turns cooking, and kept the place clean without needing to make chore charts or passive-aggressive reminders. And best of all, I had space. A room of my own. A bathroom I didn't have to share with a 10-year-old. A schedule that belonged to me. But just as I started to breathe again, the texts began. At first, it was Dylan. Quiet updates, sent late at night from his phone when he thought no one was watching. Mom forgot to pick up Sam. He waited at school for 45 minutes, cried the whole way home. Dad had to leave work early. He was pissed, and trash didn't get taken out. House smells. Mom tried to do laundry, turned Dad's shirts pink. Dylan missed soccer. She said practice was Thursday. It's been Tuesday all year. Every message was a new disaster, a mess I used to handle, a responsibility they never had to think about because I was doing it for them. The best one. Mom tried mowing the lawn, hit the sprinkler, lawn mower broke. Dad's furious. It was surreal. Watching the house unravel from a distance. I wasn't even gone a full week and everything was already falling apart. But the thing that hit hardest, Sam had a meltdown at bedtime. He misses you reading to him. That stung. I miss them too, my brothers. Not the house, not the parents, just them. Still, I stayed quiet, let it play out. Then came the first call, 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. Dad. He tried to sound casual, but I could hear the exhaustion behind his voice. The way his sentences dragged. Started with small talk. Asked how I liked the apartment. It's great, I said. Best decision I've ever made. A long pause. Then came the real reason for the call. We might have been a little harsh, he admitted. $1,300. Maybe that was too much. What if we lowered it to $800? I nearly choked on my water. 3 weeks ago, I was an ungrateful freeloader. Now I was worth a discount. I thanked him for the offer, told him I was happy where I was, that I was paying less for a better place. That's when he pivoted. It's just, things have been difficult. Your mom's overwhelmed. I've had to leave work a lot. The boys miss you. I took a breath. Steady, calm. Maybe Mom could get a job. I said. He paused. It's not that simple. Son, but it was. She hadn't worked in 8 years. She spent thousands on skincare, designer bags, and mani-pedis, while I was packing Lunchables and folding laundry. And now, suddenly, the system was breaking. Because the free labor was gone. A few days later, my mom called. That surprised me. She hadn't said a word to me since I left. Not a call, not a text. Just the cold shoulder through a living room window. But now her voice was different. Smaller. Tired. She asked how I was doing. I told her I was great. She said maybe they could work something out. What kind of something, I asked. $600 a month. She said, for your old room, and not as many chores this time. I almost laughed. $600 to share a room with Dylan and still follow your rules. She insisted it would be different. Fewer chores, more freedom. But fewer still meant some. Still meant being a parent to kids who weren't mine. Still meant sacrificing my time, my paycheck, my sanity. Then she offered me something new. We could pay you $300 a month to help out. That stopped me, because it meant they finally understood. They didn't want a son. They wanted an employee. And suddenly, the math got very clear. 3 weeks ago, they demanded $1,750 from me. Now, they were offering to pay me $300. That's a $2,000 swing. I asked her, what changed? She hesitated, then admitted it. We didn't realize how much you actually did. I said it for her. You didn't realize how much free labor you were getting. She said it wasn't like that, but it was exactly like that. They had a live-in nanny, tutor, cook, cleaner, driver, and now they were flailing without it. I told her I wasn't coming back, that I wouldn't sacrifice my future to fix the mess they created. She started to cry, said it was too hard, that she couldn't do it alone, that she didn't know what else to do. I told her, get help, hire a babysitter, get a housekeeper, or better yet, get a job. She said they couldn't afford it. I reminded her they couldn't afford it because they'd been living above their means for years. And that was not my problem to solve. Then I hung up, and for the first time in my life, I felt free. I didn't scream. I didn't post a rant on Facebook or text my mom a long essay about how she failed me. I just left and let the silence do the talking. 2 weeks after I turned down their latest offer, the cracks were turning into canyons. Dylan's texts were coming in faster, more frantic. Mom tried to make dinner. Burned it so bad the smoke alarm went off. Sam's been falling asleep in class. She lets him stay up until 11. Washing machine's leaking. Water everywhere. Dad's too tired to fix it. Mom said she'd help me study. Then went out with her friends and forgot. It was like watching a sitcom spiral into chaos, except the laugh track had been replaced by real-world stress and 2 kids stuck in the middle of it. Dad kept calling, always around 9 p.m., always with that forced cheer in his voice that cracked by the second sentence. He started asking less about me, more about logistics. What would you charge to just help with mornings? Could we pay you hourly? What if you just came back for weekends? At first, I gave polite no's, then firm ones, then nothing at all. Because deep down, I knew exactly what was happening. They didn't miss me. They missed what I did for them. And now that they had to do it themselves, they realized how much I carried. One night, Dad offered me $500 a month to come back, plus full coverage of expenses. You'd basically be living for free, he said. All we'd ask is that you help out like you used to. Get the boys ready. Help with homework, do some light chores. I did the math. That's $500 to be a full-time live-in nanny, tutor, and maid. For context, professional nannies in our area make $15 to $20 an hour. At 40 hours a week, that's $2,400 a month. They were offering me about 20% of what the job was actually worth. I told him it was a generous offer, but I was good where I was. That's when he cracked. He said Mom was having panic attacks, that she couldn't cope, that he was missing so much work his boss was getting on his case. I suggested maybe Mom could finally get a job. He said she wasn't qualified for anything anymore. I almost laughed. She's been out of work for 8 years. Maybe it's time she started at the bottom, like everyone else. McDonald's is always hiring. He called that unrealistic. No, I said. What's unrealistic is expecting your teenage son to support a household while you both coast. I'm not the solution to Mom's unemployability. He brought up the boys again, said they needed stability. And I told him, then be parents. Provide it. Hire help. Get organized. Figure it out like every other adult in the world. He got quiet. I never thought it would be this hard, he said finally. I looked around my apartment, quiet, clean, peaceful, and said, it was always this hard. I was just doing most of the work. Then I hung up, and the power shifted completely. A few days later, my mom showed up. No warning. Just knocked on the apartment door like nothing had happened. Jake answered and poked his head into my room. There's a woman here who says she's your mom. Looks not great. I stepped out, and there she was. Hair unwashed, sweatpants, no makeup, old t-shirt. This was the woman who wouldn't even check the mailbox without lashes and lip gloss. She looked broken. She started crying before I even said a word. Everything's falling apart. She said, I can't do this. I don't know how to take care of the boys. I don't know how to manage a house. I'm failing. She wasn't looking for a fight. She was begging. She offered $800 a month. I could have my own room. They'd moved Dylan to the basement. No chores, she said, except helping with the boys. I just stared at her. Do you remember what you said when I told you I was moving out? I asked. She nodded slowly. You said I'd come crawling back, that I didn't know how to take care of myself, that I'd fall flat on my face. I gestured around the apartment. I've been gone 2 months. I'm stable, I'm saving, I'm happy. And you're the one standing on my doorstep in tears. She tried to say it wasn't the same thing, but it was. I figured out how to be independent at 18. I said, "You're in your 40s and still can't manage it." She said that was cruel. I said, "What's cruel is asking your kid for $1.750 a month and calling it love. What's cruel is making your child raise your other children." She kept saying she was sorry, that she would change, that she'd get a job, that she just needed me to help get things back on track. I told her she had 8 years to get a job, 18 years to learn how to parent, decades to build life skills, and she wasted every minute of it blaming everyone else. She asked what she was supposed to do. I looked her in the eyes. Figure it out. You're a grown adult. Act like one. And then I closed the door, not with hate, not with triumph, but with peace, because I didn't need revenge in the loud, messy, movie-style way. I just needed them to feel what life looked like without me. And they did. After that last door closed, I didn't hear from my mom for a while. No calls, no texts, just silence. But Dylan kept me updated. Mom finally got a job. He texted one night, retail, minimum wage. She hates it. I wasn't surprised. She went from brunches and online shopping to standing on her feet 8 hours a day folding clothes and answering rude customers. After her first week, she cried in the bathroom, said she didn't realize how exhausting it was to work. Dad told her to suck it up. This is what everyone else does, he said. Funny how fast the tune changed when the free labor ran out. Dad, meanwhile, had to adjust his work schedule. No more late meetings or long lunches. He was dropping off and picking up the boys, helping with homework, figuring out dinners. Dylan told me he actually made spaghetti. Not bad either. He was grumpy, short-tempered, but trying. They even hired a housekeeper twice a month. Could barely afford it. But the dishes and laundry were piling up too fast. Then came the repairs. The washing machine, $800. The lawnmower, $200. Water damage in the laundry room, $500. All avoidable if they just treated me fairly in the first place. Sam was struggling too. He wasn't used to the chaos. He missed bedtime stories, structure. His teacher called home because his grades were slipping. He was tired in class, falling behind, acting out. But slowly, things started to change. Dad began helping Dylan study, took him to practice, started reading to Sam before bed. And one day, Dylan sent a message that stopped me cold. Got a B+ on my history test. First time I've passed in months. Then, this dad's actually not that bad at being a parent. That hit me hard, because it meant he was finally doing what he was supposed to do all along. Not perfectly, not easily, but doing it. They were learning. The hard way. The only way left. A month passed, then another. One afternoon, I got a text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Mom. I know you probably don't want to hear from me." I froze, kept reading. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. You were right. About everything. I was a terrible mother. I took advantage of you. I didn't expect forgiveness. But I need you to know I understand now how wrong I was. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel satisfied. Mostly, I just felt sad. Sad for the years I spent pretending I was okay. Sad for the birthdays I missed enjoying because I was too busy making sure the boys had theirs. Sad for all the things I gave without ever being asked if I had anything left to give. I waited a few days, thought about it, then finally replied, "I appreciate the apology. I hope you continue to grow and become the parent Dylan and Sam deserve." She responded almost instantly, "I'm trying. It's hard, but I'm trying. I miss you." I told her the truth. I missed the mom I thought I had too. That was the last time we spoke. I wasn't ready for a relationship. Maybe I never would be. But I needed her to know that I'd moved on my terms. Meanwhile, I kept seeing my brothers every other weekend. I'd pick them up. We'd hit the arcade, grab burgers, play video games. But this time, I wasn't doing homework with them or making dentist appointments or organizing their backpacks. I was just being their big brother. And that's all I ever wanted to be. At first, Sam kept asking when I'd come home. "Why can't you move back? We miss you." So I sat him down and said, "Remember that kid at school who kept taking your toys and your teacher said you had to stand up for yourself?" He nodded. "Well, sometimes grown-ups have to stand up for themselves too, even with family." He blinked a few times, then nodded again. Dylan understood more. He was older now, quieter, sharper. One weekend, as I dropped them off, he looked at me and said, "I'm proud of you for not letting them walk all over you. I want to be like that someday." That meant more to me than any apology ever could, because even if my parents never changed, Dylan and Sam were watching. They were learning from what I did, from what I walked away from what I built on my own. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough about a week ago. Dylan texted me again. "They're thinking of selling the house?" I blinked at the message, reread it twice. They said they can't keep up with the payments. Mom's job doesn't pay enough. Too many repairs, too much stress. The same house they wanted me to help pay the mortgage on. The house they tried to charge me Wanderers $750 a month to stay in. The house I was supposed to sacrifice my future for. Now they were planning to give it up, because they had no choice. Dylan said they were looking at smaller places, maybe even an apartment. The irony was so perfect, I almost laughed. They mocked me when I left for a small apartment. Told me I wouldn't last a month. Now they were trying to move into one, and probably paying more for it than I do. And here's the kicker. According to Dylan, Mom asked him quietly, "Do you think Brandon would help us move?" He looked her in the eyes and said, "Are you serious after what you did to him?" Even my 14-year-old brother had more emotional awareness than the adults in that house. And that told me everything I needed to know. Look, this isn't some revenge fantasy where everything works out neatly and the bad guys get dragged out in handcuffs. Nobody showed up at my apartment with a giant check and a slow clap. I didn't win the lottery or suddenly become a millionaire. What I got was better. I got peace. I got boundaries. I got the right to exist without being used. And most of all, I got to be the person I always knew I could be, without someone constantly telling me I owed them for the privilege of being born. This story isn't just mine. It's for anyone who's ever been told they're ungrateful for wanting freedom. For anyone whose parents act like support is a loan with endless interest. For anyone who's ever had to choose between loyalty and survival. The truth is, family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, mutual effort, growth. And when those things aren't there, walking away isn't betrayal. It's protection. Do I miss them? Sometimes. Sometimes I still catch myself wondering what life might have been like if they'd just been different. If they'd chosen to raise me instead of rely on me. But then I look around at my space, my choices, my peace, and I know I did the right thing. Dylan and Sam are doing okay now. They're adjusting to having actual parents instead of a teenage third one. And maybe, just maybe, this was the lesson our family needed all along. A painful one, but necessary. And if you're watching this thinking, that's my story too, then let me say this. You are not selfish for setting boundaries. You are not cruel for choosing peace. You are not wrong for walking away. You're just finally choosing yourself. And that's something to be proud of. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been the one holding it all together, hit that like button, drop a comment, share your own story, and make sure to subscribe for more powerful, real-life narratives. Because sometimes, the quietest rebellions leave the loudest echoes.